triggered. It happens before we even realize it. A word, a wound, a moment. Something sets us off. David knew what it was like to be triggered. His emotions nearly destroyed him, but they also led him back to God. Triggered by anxiety, when life felt out of control. Triggered by fear, when enemies closed in. Triggered by anger, when betrayal cut deep. Triggered by lust, when desire took the lead. Triggered by depression, when hope felt lost. But David's story didn't end there, and neither does yours. What if your triggers pointed you to God?
All right, so I'm going to share a story with you. You can be as judgmental as you want. So, a few years ago, I used to drive a very distinctive pickup truck, and I had this teal F-150, and it was very distinctive. It had a tonneau cover, hard one down on the back, and you knew I was like the only person in Fairfield that had this vehicle, and if you saw it, you knew it was me. Like it was very, very, very clear. And I was leaving the church, and I was going. I don't know where I was going. Probably a meeting someplace. I was coming down Claybank, and I got to Claybank and Tabor, and I got there, and I was getting ready to pull off and make a left-hand turn, and somebody cut me off. And as they did it, they flipped me off. And, there was no anger like what had happened, because I flipped a Yui right then. And I chased down after them, and I went after them, and I flew all the way up to them, and I got all the way to where I got to them at the stoplight at Claybank and Air Base Parkway. And as I pulled up next to them, as soon as I was pulling up next to them, I looked over and I saw an Edge sticker on the window. And I said, "Oh my God!" And I looked in the window and I was like, "Oh!" And we made eye contact and they looked at me and I looked at them. And by the way, that person still attends this church every once in a while. I think they do it out of guilt. And I run into them all the time. Like all the time we run into one another, and I'm telling you, it was like, so when that happened, was I in the wrong or were they in the wrong? Because I was furious. They knew it was me. It was my truck. They knew. Everybody knew what truck I drove. Everybody did. Did I act appropriately? No, not at all. I mean, I felt I did. Now, I will also tell you, so, by the way, I am a pastor at this point. Now, another time, I just got to tell you, I'm far from perfect. I told you, you got to be as judgmental as you want. Melissa and I were in San Diego, driving in a rental car, and we're not in a great rental car. Something that a little weakling would be driving, I guess, because somebody treated me like a weakling as I was driving it on his skateboard. You know, he said something to me, and I stopped the car in the middle of the street. And I got out. He's like, "What you gonna do?" And then when I got out of the car, he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, never mind." And he's like, "I guess I'm gonna do nothing." He came and gave me a hug. He was like, "Hey, how you doing, brother?" So the reason why I bring this up is because sometimes our anger does things that as Christians we do. The behavior we model is not very righteous. The behavior we model is not very Christian-like. The behavior we model doesn't come off as something that you would go, "Wow, you appear to be a follower of Christ." You just look like something. And see, I will tell you, just kind of give you a definition. Anger is an intense emotional response to perceived wrongs or offenses. Somebody says something to you, somebody does something to you, somebody does or whatever it is, they trigger you. And all of a sudden, you respond. How do you respond? Do you respond with anger? Do you respond with what? How do you respond? Is it an injustice? Is it a frustration? What is it? You know, sometimes it's what's happening in society. Sometimes it's what's happening in politics. Sometimes it's what's happening with rabbits or animals. Sometimes it's whatever. Like I'll just tell you right now, you do something to an animal and Susan sees it, woo! You're in trouble. You're in trouble. Like she's praying you to hell. That's what's happening. You know, that's what's going on. I mean, and that's just what it is. That's, and see what happens is when anger is left unchecked, anger triggers harmful actions. We do things that, in our words, and with things that, and we say words that destroy. Like we just do things and we say things that are terrible. And here's the thing, anger is a normal reaction. It's like a normal thing. Like, how many times just with an infant did you grab something from them, and what do? They cry. And when they turn 2, you grab something from them, anybody ever have your 2-year-old slap back at you? No. Why were you, did you tell them, don't hit, and slap them back? Like, what? It's like, but that's what happens. And see, and the Bible warns us about letting anger take root in our heart. The Bible warns us about it. And this week we're gonna continue our study about it. And we're gonna be looking at 1 Samuel 25. And we're gonna talk about anger without limits brings destruction. But patience brings peace and glory to God. Now, kind of one of these research moments that I'll give you. 62% of U.S. adults say that people being too easily offended by what other people say is a major problem of today. 62% of people say that. 47% of people say that people saying things that are very offensive to others is a major problem. You kind of see the math here. There's a problem here. There's 62% of people say that you're easily offended. 47% of people say you say offensive things. And so there's a problem here. See, most of us see how this offense is taking root in our country, and probably not for the better. Probably not for the better. And see, some of us are still slightly guilty of committing this offense. See, some of us are slightly guilty of it. Melissa and I, we have this terrible habit of sitting on the couch, taking out our phones, and she'll watch her reels on her phone, and I'll watch the reels on my phone, and she'll be sitting there dying laughing over things that I don't think are funny, and I'll be laughing at things that I think are funny, and she doesn't think are funny, right? And her things are like people getting hurt or cats falling off of TVs and stuff like that. And my things are like, other things that are probably not appropriate sometimes, right? And I show her, and she goes, that's really not appropriate. And I go, but it's funny. And she goes, yeah, but that's not appropriate. And I go, but your thing isn't even funny. And you're laughing like it's really, really funny. It's not funny. But see, that's what it is. See, some of us are guilty of looking at those inappropriate things and thinking that they're funny, and some of us are, some of us are just like, cat videos. There's actually a movie about nothing but cat videos coming out in a couple weeks. Seriously, nothing but cat videos. Yeah, my wife's thinking about going to see it. How about this? How many of you get triggered off somebody not texting back quickly enough? Like you see the bubbles, and you're like, oh, they're getting ready to text back, and then the bubbles go away. You're like, I know you saw it. I know you saw it. Or how about a friend canceling plans at the last moment? Like my daughter got mad at me yesterday. She's sitting back there right now, and she was steaming when we got in the car yesterday to go get dinner. She got in the car, she was like, and everybody in the car was like, she's mad at you. And I was like, for what? I was busy doing something. And they were like, you had plans to go see a movie with her. And I was like, I was working. I had something to do. And she was like, but you canceled on her, and she was upset about it. She was mad. She had daddy-daughter time, and she was upset about it. And so that, and see, sometimes that triggers you to be upset, be angry. What about a post or a comment on social media you disagree with? Does that do it? What about being overlooked when somebody doesn't greet you warmly when you walk in the door? When you walked into church today, somebody didn't say, hey, good morning, welcome, thanks for being here. We love you. Or what happens when you feel that somebody was invited and you weren't? Like everybody else was invited to something, and you're like, why didn't I get invited? Why wasn't I invited to that? I thought I was part of the crew. Why didn't I get invited? What happened? Or what happens if a joke just hits a little too close to home? Just a little too close. Or maybe somebody misinterpreting or misunderstanding your intentions, or maybe being corrected or challenged in public, or maybe not getting credit or the recognition you think that you deserve or you feel that you deserve. See, all of those things are triggers. All of those things, and maybe they're things that are triggers, and they're the right triggers sometimes. Maybe they're things that you should be angry about. Maybe they're not. And how did you respond? How did you respond with those things? And actually, a better question, maybe more importantly, how does God desire you to respond? How did God desire you to respond in those situations? So this week we're going to pick up where we're in the life of David, and we're going to talk about this. And for those of you that missed last week, go back and watch it, and you can do it on our app. And so King Saul is unraveling, and he's once chosen by God, and he's now consumed by jealousy, and he slaughters the priest for aiding David and his men, and he hunts the servant like a wild animal. He's out there, he's going crazy. That's 1 Samuel 22. And so twice David has a chance to kill Saul, once in a cave, once in a field, but David spares the king, refusing to strike God's anointed, the current king, and the authority of Israel. And David, of all people, should know where this unchecked offense leads. He's like, I know where this is going to go. But he sees how jealousy poisons the soul and how anger warps judgment, but soon he's going to face his own test. He's going to face what's going on. And Saul lets this offense turn him into a madman. He's just stewing in it. Now, just imagine you have this offense that's building up within you. You have this, and it's just driving him crazy. He's just stewing within it. So, will David be triggered into making the same mistake? Or will he limit his anger before it's too late? So, beginning in 1 Samuel 25. So here's what happens. It says, now Samuel died, and all of Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his home of Ramah. And then David moved down to the desert of Paran. And a certain man in Maon, who had property there in Carmel, was very wealthy. And he had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep. And he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. And she was intelligent and a beautiful woman, but her woman was surly and mean in his dealings, right? And he was a Calebite. So we're going to get to what his name means, and we're going to get to all that stuff. But it's important that so it's very important that we stop here, and it's identified that she is intelligent, right? Because most men are mean and angry, right? It's just how it is. It's just how it's identified. Most men are mean and angry, and most women tend to be the level-headed and intelligent ones in the relationship. It's just how it is. They just tend to be the way. Like men, they just, boom, all of a sudden we're angry. And it takes the woman of the relationship to kind of go, hey, calm down. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're being angry over nothing. And so this is important in this in this context. This is very important. And the reason why it's identified this way is because it's very important in this chapter. Like, they identify it in the beginning because it's important for you to know that she's intelligent, that she's going to, hey, she thinks because he's mean. And so And also know that his name, Nabal, means fool. He's just a fool. So, and so I don't know when you're born, I don't know when your parents look at you, because most kids, when they're born, all kids are pretty cute when they're born, right? You look at them, because if they were born ugly, people would be like, here, you take this one, he's ugly. I don't want him. So they all have to be pretty cute. You have to look at them and go, oh, he's so cute, because if they, but when they're born and you go look at them and they go, oh, he's going to be a fool. We're just going to name him that, be Nabal. So, but that's how it has to be. So that's his name. So, and it's not even, they didn't even call it behind his back. They just named him that. It was like, here you go. So just notice how they're described. Intelligent, fool. That's just how you got to go. So just want to know, the next time that somebody describes you in your relationship, when they're talking about you and your spouse, do they describe one of you as being a fool and the other one being intelligent? Just think about that and kind of move forward. So the next time you're triggered and the next time that people come in contact with you, how will you choose? So here's the story as we go forward. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep, so he sent 10 young men and said to them, go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name and say to him, long life to you, good health to you and your household, and all good health to all that is you. Now I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable towards my men, since we come at festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them. When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. Some translations, including the NIV, actually omit this direct English translation in the greeting of shalom, right? Which is best described to mean peace. They actually just omit it. So, but here's what happens. So verse 10, Nabal answers David's servants. Who is this David? Now, we should be pretty clear. He knows exactly who David is. There's not a question if he knows who David is. Because the very next line, he says, who is this son of Jesse? You wouldn't know who Jesse is. You wouldn't know who David, you wouldn't be able to come, these two wouldn't go together. It just wouldn't happen. And it says many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Those two things all don't go together. And he says, why should I take my bread and water and the meat that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to the men coming from who knows where? So here's the thing. As you start to see this, the response, so David's request seems reasonable, right? Hey, we protected your people. We protected your livestock. We protected all of your stuff. And I'm asking you, we made sure that nobody stole your stuff. We made sure nobody got killed. We made sure all your stuff was taken care of. Nobody got anything. Everything was, and so you can see that the response, anger often begins with like a personal offense. And so he probably feels a little offended going, we took care of you. Why aren't you taking care of us? Well, there's like, and so you can see how he's able to take personal offense here. And he sees, why aren't you taking care of me? Why aren't you taking care of my men while we've taken care of you? And see, this is where he starts to get upset. You can see that Nabal probably identifies more with Saul as a master and king than with David as a servant and a leader, right? He doesn't see him he's like, hey, he's just a servant. I'm not going to continue. I'm a rich ruler. I control this land. He's just a servant. I'm not giving him anything. He was supposed to take care of my sheep. He was supposed to guard them. I don't have to give him anything. That's what his responsibility was. See, he was just like, that's what he's supposed to do. That's what he's supposed to do out there. See, and Nabal, think about this, is probably being triggered by David for being shaken down. He thinks he's being shaken down by him. He's like, oh, now you're going to blackmail me? Oh, no. See, you can see that there's probably, like as you look at this, there's probably some grammatical expressions when you go through this, that he feels this, I'm not going to give you anything. That's a servant. I'm not giving you anything of mine. Why would I give you something of mine? You were supposed to do those things. That's your job. And so you would feel this, and when you go through this, you could see the offense on both sides. But David has been anointed to be the next king. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew he'd been anointed to be the next king. And so, can you imagine, David is triggered, Nabal is triggered, but I would say that David is probably taking it a little more personal. And he probably escalates it. Actually, he does escalate it. You're going to see this. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you were triggered? When was the last time you took personal offense to something? And did you stop, just as you're thinking about this, did you stop to consider the other person's motives? So this could have ended right here if both Nabal and David considered one another. It could have stopped. They could have been, because if Nabal would have said, oh, he took care of them instead of considering him to be a servant, or if David would have said, he thinks of me as being a servant, it could have stopped right there. But it didn't. So here's what it says, verse 12. David's men turned around and went back. And when they arrived, they reported every word. And David said to his men, each of you strap on your sword. So they did. And David strapped on his as well. And about 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Now, I don't think that Nabal understood what he had unleashed. I don't think that he understood what was getting ready to happen. So, number one, Nabal didn't have 400 men to defend himself with. He didn't have that. He didn't have 400 people that were getting ready to take on this small army that was getting ready to come over and take over all this stuff. And so here comes David with 400 men, angry, not with a righteous anger, with a pure anger, just pure seething anger. And it's leading, and this unchecked anger is leading to destructive actions. Because that's what's getting ready to come. He's getting ready to come and bring the heat. That's getting ready to come. And so once triggered, this offense turns into action, and this action, it's getting ready to be a lot. So, I want to go back to my story with, as I got flipped off by the person as we're driving along the road, the guilt every time that I see that person. Every time I run into that person, the guilt that I look at them and I go, I have to apologize to them time and time again. I have to go, I'm sorry. It's been almost 9 years since that happened. 9 years. No, he hasn't apologized. He thinks he was in the right. And as it happens, it's just, you look and you just go, but I apologize. And it was my anger that as I turned, and as I did this, number one, I could have just let it go. I could have hit the brakes, let it go, continued about my day. Nobody would know wiser. I'm the one who flipped a U-turn and acted like I was crazy. And I'm the one who came up there. I'm the one who pulled up next to him. I'm the one who looked like I was nuts. I pulled up next to him, my eyes bulging out of my head, and obviously, there was something wrong with me. See, I don't think my actions were justified. I don't think that anything I could have said, anything I could have did, would have been justified. I should have just chopped it up. See, when was the last time that you had anger that you could look and be like, oh, my actions were justified in that anger? My actions was justified. See, some of us, because I used to use this line, and I actually use it every once in a while. Anybody ever use the line, well, turning tables is okay. Jesus turned tables in the Bible. Anybody ever use that line? I've used it. Flipping tables is all right. But see, here's the thing. There's a difference between righteous anger and unrighteous anger. See, when you have righteous angers, you're trying to make things right. You're flipping tables over because you're trying to make things right. That's that righteous anger. Like you're like, hey, and I'm trying to make things right for God, not for me, for God. He's flipping tables over because he's like, you are changing money and you're turning God's house into a money-changing place. That's righteous anger. You flip tables over because you're angry that somebody took money from you. That's anger about your personal offense, not that they offended God. See, what is your anger? Are you personally offended, or are you offended that something happened with God? There was an offense that happened with God, or what is like? See, that's where we get to this problem. We don't have righteous anger. We just have personal anger. We get offended and we're like, that's my problem, and it's my anger. See, thankfully, the wisdom of Abigail leads to her taking action of her own. See, that's what happens. The wife steps in and takes action. And see, oftentimes, that's what happens today. The wife steps in and takes action. The wife steps in and goes, hey, you fool, stop. You have to stop. But this time, she doesn't even go to him because she knows that she can't control the fool. She goes directly she goes, hey, I got to put an end to this. And she goes, so here's what it says in verse 14. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our masters his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields nothing was missing. The night and day, or the wall around us, the whole time we were herding sheep near them. Now, think it over and see what you can do, because the disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. So here's the thing. They know what's coming. They know. They know that he's coming with 400 men, and I can just tell you now, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be like, hey, we came to kind of scare you a little bit. We wanted to just go, hey, we're here for a little bit of milk and honey and some sugar, and we're going to go back to our place. No, they're going to take it all. That's what's going to happen. You're like, what are they going to do? And see, Nabal's offense is going to lead to the destruction of everything and everyone. So it's going to happen. And David's anger is going to lead him to overreact and to potentially damage his reputation. That's what's going to happen. He's going to overreact, and his reputation and his future rule, and before it even begins. So it's going to happen. Nobody's ever going to listen to him. If he wipes out a family and a community, who's ever going to let him lead? Who's ever going to let him go in and be the guy who takes over and leads Israel? Nobody. So here, verse 24. So here, Abigail rushes to calm David's anger. She rushes and she fell, and here's what it says in verse 24. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my Lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." So, and in the original Hebrew, the sentence reads, "Mine, my Lord, is the blame," is what it says. Mine is the blame. She doesn't even know exactly what transpired between her husband and him. She just goes, "It's my fault. I'll just take responsibility. Please don't wipe out everybody. It's my fault. It's my responsibility." Abigail, from the first line, assumes full responsibility. She doesn't make excuses. And she quickly transfers the responsibility from Nabal to her. She completely takes it. It's not one of those things. And see, in the following verses, she begins by accepting David's offenses as well. And she goes, hey, this is what we need to do. And she accepts, and she goes, hey, this needs to be answered. And see, when somebody is triggered by you or somebody you're defending, what is your first word of defense? What do you do? What do you do? How do you respond? See, Abigail patiently calms David. That's what she does. She calms him. See, you know what happens when we get in arguments? At least I know what happens in my house. I know, Melissa and I, the volume increases between the two of us, right? And it goes up, and then 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 all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it comes to a complete halt, and we don't talk to one another. And so, but that's exactly what goes on. Instead of and when you're fighting with somebody else out there, it's the same thing that happens. Anybody ever get, customer service on the phone, you start yelling at them, they just hang up on you. That's the line going dead. When I worked in retail, though, the first thing we always tried to do was diffuse the situation, right? You know, you always try to diffuse. Like, I've had managers that work for me. They just wanted to keep talking, like, go back and forth with them. I'd be like, you're not going to win. You just let them get everything they want to say off their chest, and then just go like, all right, cool. What do you want me to do? They're like, what do you want me to do? And I go, well, I can't do that. Let's try something else. Like, what would you like me to do? Well, I can't do that. Let's try something else. Like, what's an alternative? You know, and you just continue to try and find alternatives to work it out. You know, and see, that's the best way to do it. And see, that's and see here, this is the same exact thing. She tries to do this. Instead of impulsively reacting, she goes, like, I've just got to go and try and find an alternative. I got to find some sort of other way rather than allowing this destructive means to go on. So, verse 32, David says to Abigail, praise be to the Lord, God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for your keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak. He's already said, I would have wiped all of you out. By tomorrow morning, all of you would have been gone. Well, all the men, all of you would have been gone. See, what this is telling you, humility cools the fire of anger. That's what happens. See, and sure, David offers blessings over Abigail for her wisdom. But God is the one who rightly receives the credit for preventing the potential massacre. So, every time that you're triggered, it's an opportunity for God to be glorified. See, when you're patient, God's name is praised. When you act wisely, God's wisdom is proven. When you speak humility, God's grace is revealed. You just have to look and go, this is what we're doing. See, thanks to the patience, the wisdom, and the humility of Abigail, it's in verse 35, it says, then David accepted from her hand what she had brought to him and said, go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request. See, being slow to anger is a mark of spiritual maturity. See, in the Old and New Testaments, including the teachings of Jesus, one of the marks of truly transformed life and the follower of Jesus is being slow to anger. You know, see, there's no better test. If you're going, well, you know, test me in this. There's no better test than being slow to anger. So when you're triggered, are you slow to anger? So let's look at verse 36 here. When Abigail went on to Nabal, he was the king of the house, holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. And she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. See, the revenge always comes around. That's what happens. You know, like it's always God, you know, God gets his. And so he has kept his servants from doing wrong, and he has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head. And then David sent word to Abigail asking her to become his wife. Woo! Let's see, like worked out. He died. Let's go. Come on. You know. Yeah, it's like that. They didn't even bury him. He's like, just don't worry about him. Let's go. And see, anger can be righteous, but it must be limited by love and patience. So Abigail once again patiently waits for Nabal to sober up, revealing the reality that David and his men almost killed everyone. I mean, that's what she does. And like Goliath before him, another enemy of David defeated once by a stone, only this time it's God who does the killing. And so when you are triggered, do you rely on God to do the revenge, or do you try to do it yourself? Who are you trying to allow do the reaction? Is it you? Is it your blood pressure that goes up? Is it your anxiety that gets triggered? Is it is it you that starts turning into, is it you the one that starts to feel it? Like, I know that when I get angry, my complexion causes me to start turning a little red. I just start, and I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel my, like, I can feel it in my head. I can feel it in my neck. I'm like, especially when I'm trying to hold it in. Like, I feel like it's almost like that Hulk type of mentality that starts going on. And I'm like, oh, I have to walk away. Like, you ever see me walk away from a situation, you know that it's almost that I almost exploded. Like everybody goes, oh, why is he walking away? It's like, because if I would have stayed, I might have did something I would have regretted. Like, I would have got fired. Like, and it's, see, and I know some of us would go past, you might go, Pastor Mike, I would love to not be so easily triggered. But what do I do if I'm already triggered? What if no Abigail shows up? Or what do I do if I can't stop myself like David did? What do I do? So here are a few practical ways. So here's some steps, right? First, recognize when your anger is controlling you, right? So David let anger briefly control him, nearly leading to bloodshed. That's what happens. So here's what it says in Ecclesiastes 7, verses 8 and 9. It says, better is the end of a thing than its beginning. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the heart of fools. So, think about that. Where is anger being? Where are you allowing that to just live in your heart? Where are you allowing that to live at? Now, be clear, that's from the ESV. So if you have an NIV, that's not how it reads in your Bible. So that lack of patience and that spirit of pride, those are two things that are going to lead you to anger a lot. It really is. And so that offense, that spirit of pride, and that lack of patience. Just know that those three things are going to be what leads you to anger a lot. And it literally is what killed Nabal. It literally is. And so when you start to see this, those are the three things that I know will trigger most men in here. And I don't know for women, I've never had that, but those three things trigger men a lot. And so I know for my wife, it's jealousy. Like, my wife gets angry with jealousy. Like, I'll just tell you now. So you can ask her for more things, but I know jealousy does it. So Colossians 3:8. But now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. What does that mean? Anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. That means most of you should stop talking. Yeah, think before you talk. So before the next time, spend some time praying and asking God what triggers you. Reach out to a friend, like an Abigail, and agree to help one another. Find somebody who can be your accountability partner. Memorize and take heart verses like that Ecclesiastes verse. Find things that you can write down in your journal. Like what has triggered you in the past, and look for a pattern, things to avoid. Next thing, pause and choose patience over anger. See, just pause. Take a moment. Like, if I would have just paused in the car, if I would have just took a moment, they would have got away. It just would have happened. They would have made a right or left, and I wouldn't have caught up to them at the stoplight. That just would have happened. Instead, I caught up to them, and I embarrassed myself, and I made it even worse. But if you just take a moment and pause, and you can choose patience, right? And see, unlike David's impulsive initial reaction, Abigail demonstrates wisdom and patience. That's what she does. And see, here's what Proverbs 15:18 says: a hot-tempered person stirs up conflict. Well, like the eyes that I just got from my wife right now, like, that's you. See, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. See, if you can be patient, you can calm these quarrels. So, I think that this is spiritual speculation, by the way. That's just know that. Spiritual speculation. You can't see a much older David at this point. But I could almost think that he would be sitting there going, if I would have been patient at that moment, things would have been different. I would have been triggered differently, or I would have did things differently. I could have handled things differently. Things would have been different. See, James writes this incredible verse worth memorizing. He says, "Dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires." That's James 1, 19 and 20. Through patience, we allow space for God's justice rather than reacting impulsively. How are you reacting? What are you doing? Which direction are you going? See, pause to give room for God to make everything right. That's what we need to be doing. And so finally, pursue peace promptly. That's what you have to do. Pursue peace promptly. See, it says, 1 Samuel 25, 18a, it says Abigail acted quickly. Abigail acted quickly. She didn't wait. She didn't say, hey, I'll get to that next week. I'll wait a month or two. She was like, I got to go now. I got to take care of it. And then in the letter of the church of Ephesus, Paul writes, in your anger, do not sin. And do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. Well, think about this. How many of us have had this point where we've been angry and we've gone to bed? That we've been fighting with one another, with our spouse, and we're like, we'll deal with this tomorrow. And we go to bed. And that's what happens. And then you get up the next day and you've carried over that anger to the next day. You haven't even started the new day over it. You're just like, well, let's start over this thing. Let's just continue being angry for days and days and days. And see, that's what happens. So think back to the things that have triggered you in the past. Think back to the things that have triggered you recently. I always tell people, don't go too far back. Because I think you can accomplish this with a week, right? If you go more than a week, oftentimes it gets too much. So, think back to the things that have triggered you recently. How about that? Who do you need to forgive? Who do you need to forgive? And then, what do you need to let go of? What do you need to let go of? And then maybe, where do you need to extend a peace offering? Where do you need to, and see, these are all things that you need to be thinking about and go, where do I need to be at? So, our worship team's going to come back up and I'm going to close. But where do you need to, the next time you find yourself triggered, the next time you have these things going, who do you, start thinking about these, where do you need to be patient at? Where do you need to start thinking about, I need to extend grace here. I need to start working through some of this stuff that I need to be, I'm just continuing to, I should be showing grace here. I should be forgiving here. I should be continuing to show mercy. And if I'm not showing righteous anger, which is trying to make this right, then what sort of anger what am I doing here? What is happening here? Why am I, if I'm not trying to make it right, why am I showing anger here? What is happening? What sort of anger? What am I doing? Is it worth it? See, too often we get angry over things that aren't going to change anything. The only thing that's going to do is it's going to make it to where you're probably going to take a few seconds off your life because you're going to increase your blood pressure. You're going to get that, all of a sudden you got that increase all the way up into the blood flow into your brain and get ready to, and that's just what happens. We get angry, and most of the time we get angry over things that aren't going to matter tomorrow. Just don't matter. They literally just don't matter the next day. They're like when the guy flipped me off, what does that matter the next day? Somebody cuts you off in traffic. What does that matter the next day? Somebody says something to you about whatever. Somebody steps on your shoes. Somebody, disrespects you. What does that matter? What does that change? What does that do for you the next day? Or what is that? You're never going to see that person again. What does that change anything? And see, we get angry over things that literally mean nothing the absolute next day, and we take offense to it, and we do things that have lifelong repercussions. do things that make it to where there's people right now that are sitting in prison for the rest of their life because they've made a decision out of anger that was said, oh, that disrespected me, or this or that. A 30-second decision made it to where they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison. You know, I will tell you is that anger causes us to do things that we never thought we would ever do. Jealousy causes us to do things that we never thought we would do. And as we start to navigate, and as we go through these emotions that we're dealing with, like right now, last week we're talking about anxiety. This week we're talking about anger. All of these things lead to one another. Anger leads into anxiety, and anxiety will lead us into anger because we'll get angry at ourselves for being anxious. You know, and it's just all these things, and they tie together. Really, where we find peace is in Jesus. And so as you start going through all of this, and as you start going, how do I find peace, or how do I get rid of all, you need to pause and seek Jesus through it. Stop. I'll tell you, the worst thing that we're doing is this. It's right here. We're spending way too much time trying to find peace on this device. We're spending too much time going, I'm going to find peace on Instagram, Facebook, one of these places. And you're not. You're not going to find peace here. You know where you're going to find peace at? You're going to find peace in your Bible. You're going to find peace with Jesus. You're going to find peace in the comfort of other believers. Hebrews 10:25 says, let us not forsake meeting together as some have done. And it's too often that we stop meeting together and we start going, why is it that I feel lonely? Why is it that I feel disconnected? Why is it that I feel anxious? Why is it that I feel depressed? Why is it that I feel these things? Well, it's because you've disconnected yourself from the body of Christ. You've disconnected yourself from one another. You've disconnected, and what happens is as soon as you take away a part of the body, well, what happens is it starts to wither, it starts to die, it starts to fall away, and it needs to be rehydrated, reconnected in order to find nourishment, in order to find where it goes, I'm starting to be reconnected. I'm starting to find what I need. Stop disconnecting yourself. Stop burying yourself in a device. Stop burying yourself in things that mean nothing. Stop pursuing things that mean nothing and start being connected to Jesus. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to be at. In the fellowship of believers connected to Jesus. Don't just be hanging out with people and be like, oh, we're all hanging out together. Well, you better be hanging out together seeking Jesus. That's where you need to be. Let's pray. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for showing us that anger can lead us to you. When we get angry, that we can pause and we can seek you through that anger. We can pivot away from the offense that we've had, and it can lead us to draw nearer to you, to find peace and to find healing and to find guidance and to find just that refreshing that you offer. Father, help us to seek you through these trials and these tribulations that we continue to that we continue to face, that we continue to be brought before us. Father, as soon as we say, take these situations away from us, we know that we will deal with more of them. As soon as we go, take away this anger, take away these things from us, take away this opportunity, help me be patient. We're going to get more opportunities to be patient and more opportunities to have our anger tested. And so, Father, help us to seek you through all of these opportunities that are going to be placed before us now. Help us to continue to find peace in you. Help us to continue to find others that we can find accountability in, others that we can reach out to. Help us to find the Abigails that we can seek, that'll help us to go, I need to find that person that'll help hold me accountable, that'll help me know, that'll let me know when I'm wrong, that'll let me know when I go, hey, I need to seek forgiveness. I need to seek peace here, and I need to seek Jesus. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for when we do have anger, Thank you for that anger, because that anger leads us to you. As long as we allow it to lead us to you, thank you for it. So, Father, help us pivot. Help us draw near to you. And thank you for when we're triggered. Thank you for allowing it to lead us to you. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.